Play at Novibet.
Hello, and thanks for joining us. Another edition of the Irish Angle in association with Novibet. As usual, I've Emma Nagle and Johnny Ward here, and we're going to look back at all the things from last week, particularly the Irish Derby weekend. Emma, Johnny, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Vincent.
Thanks, Vinny.
Now, Emma, you were there yesterday. What did you make of it? Decent crowd, anyway. That's the first thing.
I was there yesterday, yeah. It was a great day now, in fairness. I'm not sure what the official attendance was, but just kind of from a feel around the course, it seemed a lot busier than it was last year. The weather probably helped that now, right? Driving up the motorway, there was a few rain showers, and I was thinking, God, it's going to be a repeat of last year with the wind and the rain. But it was a great day up there, and even like the big race of the day, I was probably cribbing it as much as anyone, kind of building up to it. But like there was a real kind of bit of excitement around it. I suppose the way the race panned out, like three kind of big three horses from three different countries as well fighting out the finish. The two main protagonists going at it up the straight. There was a good buzz around there now, and I think the Curragh did a great job in promoting it, in fairness, because they seemed to get reward for all the marketing that went into it. It seemed a lot better than last year. I'm not sure what the official attendance was, but yeah, it was a good day, I think.
Well, one thing I have to say, I watch it from home, but it's lovely to see full stands in the Curragh, isn't it? There's nothing worse than watching horses coming up there like we had to do during COVID, particularly everywhere with empty stands. It just isn't the same horse racing when there's not a crowd. Johnny, did you enjoy it?
I did, Vinny. I would have gone now. I kind of had just with my new responsibilities and that I wasn't able to go to Croke Park on Saturday, which turned out to be a bit disappointing as well. For all that I watched it in the local in Dublin, that was good crack. And I was like, I basically want to go to the Irish Derby every year. I want to support Curragh. I think it's a great day out. And as you say, Vinny, the crowds in the stands visible was it was something nice to see. And the race itself, I mean, we've had Brian O'Connor's article in the Irish Times on Friday, sort of promoting the idea of going back to a mile and two. And, there's maybe issues with how much prize money there is relative to field size. But we did have the second and third at Epsom, and we had a horse from France. We had the 8 runners to help the World Pool. And it was a fascinating race tactically because Ballydoyle/Coolmore had 4 of the 8 runners, and was able to sort of look at the race in terms of how to get the favourite beaten. And, the Curragh itself, it was a 9-race card. I saw Richie Forrestal kind of bemoaning that it was a big, in the race was a long day, 9-race card. But I don't see an issue with it. It was a 9-race card, compelling racing from start to finish, really good racing at the weekend at the Curragh from start to finish. And I'm glad to hear that Emma's relaying good stuff back. Like the Curragh really needs to build on this. I think it needs to put massive effort into getting people back and really making it the premier experience that it should be, because so much money was spent on it. It's a fantastic racetrack. And I thought it was a thrilling derby. I really did. I enjoyed it immensely. Lots of talking points from it. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to going back next year.
Great stuff. Yeah. The other thing to note here is 24 races over the 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. 17 different trainers had winners. And I think, as far as I know, 8 Curragh trainers, which is great for the local area as well, because the Curragh's been battered in recent years with stables with nobody in them. There's all sorts of places around the Curragh where it used to have 2 or 3 horses in them. Now there's nothing. They're closed down and all sorts of different things. So it was really good to see such a Curragh presence as well. On that, Johnny, you mentioned a few things there about the race itself. Pacemakers, that was one of the ones for me in the Derby itself. The team tactics with this, there's a responsibility here on jockeys and on trainers that every horse runs on its merits. There has to be a case for saying some of those Ballydoyle horses did not actually run on their merits. They were setting the pace for a stable companion who went to win the race. Now, in fairness to them, when they turned into the straight, they all moved out wide enough, not just to let their stable companion through, but to let all the other protagonists through as well. So it turned into a fine race in the end. It might have even added to it by having pacemakers. But is there not a case for saying here that at least there should be a rap on the knuckles afterwards to a jockey, a trainer who runs a horse in a race that didn't actually run on its entire merits? What do you think, Emma?
Yeah, look, I suppose I can see the argument to it, but I think the way the race was run, I saw a few people on social media and stuff kind of similar thoughts, but the 2 pacemakers, they kind of set the race up nicely for the main horses, and they're just looking at one of them go over a square, like he's probably his best one of his life was making the pace as well. So I'd say if they were pulled in front of the stewards, that's probably a valid argument they could make for that as well. But like, look, they set a strong pace and they pulled well wide when they knew they were beat, and they didn't just let Los Angeles go up the inner. Like, there was plenty of room for all of the horses who were coming from behind to slip up through there. So look, it's not something I personally have a problem with. I think look, having those horses in the race makes it kind of a truer test of the stamina and everything of it. Yeah, not something I'd have a problem with. And if it was a case of they kept it bunched up and only let Los Angeles and Ryan Moore slip up the inner, maybe then there will be more of a kind of discussion to have about it. But yeah, look, I think the race set up perfectly, and I think Johnny kind of alluded to it, like, it was a brilliant battle up the straight. I don't think there was any excuses like for team tactics for any of the beaten horses. Ambiente Friendly, I think he had every chance to go for Los Angeles. Maybe he went a little bit early, did he? Maybe he probably just didn't stay it out. Like he went for the 2 furlong pole, and he just faded out at the end. Los Angeles and Ryan Moore, they were really brave and battled. And interesting, Aidan mentioning where he'd go next. He thought he was classier than maybe he thought going into it. But look, I thought the race played out perfectly, and I wouldn't be coming out of it thinking the Ballydoyle pacemakers kind of affected the results in any way, negatively anyway.
Yeah,
I suppose, Vinny.
Yeah, Johnny.
Well, just on this, there are certain things in racing where you have a rule. You're not supposed to run a horse basically unless he or she is fully fit. Obviously, you're not supposed to use the race horse to get a horse fit. But you'll often hear trainers saying he's about 75% fit. Like, I have little doubt that the stewards in the IHRB don't really have the stomach to call in Aidan O'Brien and the Coolmore partners' horses in relation to 50-1 shots kind of being sacrificed as pacemakers in any race, be it the Irish Derby or otherwise. And that's kind of the reality of it. And I think we can accept, I agree with what you're saying. I mean, they're not really running on their merits, but kind of at the same time, it's almost like one of these accepted rule breaks in racing that it's a kind of a benign rule break, a bit like maybe horses being scratched because they're coughing when there's some other excuse. And to be fair, like it actually, like, if I saw Dennis Hogan actually had a horse lately that was well fancied, was it at Kilbeggan, and it was in a sort of run of the mill race, and I'm putting two together, but a stablemate was up front in the race and sort of took on the main form danger in the race to the fancied Hogan runner. And for me, that's actually a brilliant bit of race planning. Like, I think if you have a horse fancied in a race and you can put another horse in the race to ensure that there's a reasonable gallop and to just take that quandary out of the equation, I actually think there's a lot to be said for it. And for the race itself, like, I was tipping up the Euphrates kind of to finish in the top 4 on the basis that I thought he was too slow to be sacrificed as a pacemaker. So I thought he kind of would run these merits, but at the same time I wasn't sure because did 4 in the race, and like, it was a bit like, what was the plan with Los Angeles at Epsom? Was he actually running entirely on his merits, or was he half there to, when Coolmore, everything was about City of Troy at Epsom? So it's one of the quandaries of it. But in terms of breaking the rules, I do think it's a fairly benign rule break. And, you saw Rab Havlin come over. What Emma said there, I think the race turned out into a bit of a mess for Ambiente Friendly because this gap opened up for him. And like, there's a massive long straight at the Curragh from the top of the straight where he's a horse that probably gets a mile and a half, but he might be a bit better over a mile and 2. And all of a sudden he hits the front way too soon. You look at John Velasquez riding in Ireland over the last sort of days of the Curragh, totally new tracks for him. You couldn't say he looks like, oh my God, this is one of the best riders we've ever seen. And that's the challenge of riding at the Curragh and riding the Irish Derby when you're taking on, the Coolmore Battalion, and you're taking on Ryan Moore, who knows the track very well. So I think you're kind of breaking the rules, but it's a fairly benign breaking of the rules, if that makes sense.
All right, yeah. The other, just last thing on this, just from my point of view, I suppose, is the fact we talk about good crowds at the Curragh. It's great to see them back and everything else. And you'd like to think those people who came, that they enjoyed their day and that they didn't lose money back in pacemakers. So shouldn't they at least put a different cap on them, make an announcement beforehand to say, listen, if you're having a bet in the Derby, don't back numbers 1, 2, or 6. They're only here as pacemakers, which is fair enough, isn't it? For people, at least give the punters a chance rather than letting them blindly go out there, having a clue. They're just told there's 8 runners in the race and they're all trying to finish in the first 3 or whatever it is. So last thing on it was that.
Pacemakers
I was going to say,
they can. Yeah, but at least let people know in advance that they are a pacemaker. That kind of a way. In the same way that we don't just say
it's a bit more nuanced as well, though, because Yeah, it's a
But
bit more nuanced as well, because I think Coolmore over the years, if Coolmore started running 200 to 1 shots to make the pace, basically jockeys are like, well, sure, there's no point. This is a pacemaker, but I'm not going to track him, or he just doesn't bother me at all. So you have a race within a race where your pacemaker has to have a reasonable chance. We've seen this in the Irish Derby as well. And it's funny, the race that Verhoeven ran in, Verhoeven and I can't remember what horse Johnny Velasquez was riding in the race, but it was May Night. And I thought they were going way too hard, like way too hard. And the Commonson running led at fast pace. But Verhoeven was 28 to 1. He finished third. May Night was 25 to 1, finished fifth. And I thought both of them were going way too hard. So sometimes it can kind of work out the other way as well.
all right, one other thing about the Derby was the fact that there's been a lot of talk about reducing the distance. You mentioned that there, Johnny, about going back to 1.25 miles. Is that something we should be looking at here? It looks like the Curragh themselves are saying no, they're not looking at it. John Magner also, who had the winner, he was saying 1 mile 4 furlongs is the tradition and history. It's like the Belmont Stakes in America. They won't shorten that distance, but the Belmont Stakes, I suppose, is slightly different, as is the Epsom Derby. Like the Epsom Derby is still a huge race, but the Irish Derby, where it sits in the season and within the whole structure now, has not become the be all and end all for 3-year-old colts to go for. As we see with the Epsom Derby winner is going for the Eclipse on Saturday rather than the race on home soil. So what do you think, Emma? Is it something that should be looked at, moving it back?
Yeah, I suppose. Look, there's definitely an argument to be had there. Like now a horse wins the Derby, be it in Epsom or Ireland, and people are kind of whispering national hunt under their breaths, and it's like you win the Derby in Epsom, you have to go nearly back and prove, oh, I'm actually not a mile and a half horse. I can win over a mile and 10 furlongs as well. So look, while Aidan O'Brien normally does go for both Derbies, but he's kind of star of the year if he has one that year. They didn't go it this year because I suppose City of Troy is being touted as the superstar stallion prospect. So look, there's definitely an argument to be made. John Magner seemed fairly against it in comments. I didn't actually see the interview live, but I saw a few quotes from him saying, it's history and tradition. But like the way that people are breeding racehorses is definitely changing. There's more of an emphasis on speed now, when the Derby just isn't as attractive as it was before, I suppose, as a stallion making race, on the flat anyway, at least. But like, I suppose, looking at Ambiente Friendly, like some people obviously do still put massive value in a classic over the mile and a half. Like Ambiente Friendly's trainer, James Fanshawe, was saying that he didn't want to go for the Derby at all. He thought this horse wouldn't stay a mile and a half, but the owner still wanted to try again after Epsom, even if it wasn't proved that he stayed that day. So look, there's still plenty of history and tradition about it. It's always going to be a classic. It's a massive one for any horse to win going to the breeding shed. But dropping it back to 10 furlongs, you might just get that kind of classier horse. Like maybe City of Troy would have gone there over the 10 furlongs. You could get horses from France. Maybe some of the ones from, who might have gone for the St. James's Palace, they might have tried 10 furlongs and try and win a classic over that trip instead. Look, you can definitely see it would make it a better race, but are you kind of giving in to the fashion trends in racehorse breeding now? It might never go back to the way it was. The mile and a half being kind of the be all, the middle distance horses. It's a tough question, but the Curragh don't seem to be entertaining it at the moment. It would be interesting maybe to try it for a year or two and see how it went. But it's up to the powers that be, I suppose.
Yeah, the other thing with this is, look, let's take it that nothing changes. We're going to leave it as a mile and a half race. Fair enough. It's history, it's tradition, it's whatever you want to call it, and we leave it at that. Why is the prize money so high? 1.25 million they're giving away for this, and we're not attracting A-class horses or A-list horses as such in it. Like, we haven't got the Derby winner, we haven't got the French Derby winner, and all those other potential 3-year-olds we could attract from around Europe. So is the prize money too big in this, Johnny? Like, you look at the guineas, the Irish 1 and 2,000 guineas. I think there's only 500,000 in prize money for each of them. So why is it worth 2.5 times as much as the 2,000 guineas in Ireland, when that potentially attracts a better field than we're going to get here? And you look at races like the Eclipse we talked about there is on next Saturday. That's only got £750,000 sterling. It's less money for the Eclipse than there is for the Irish Derby. Would the Irish Derby get the same field with 500,000 or 600,000 in prize money?
Yeah, I tend to agree there. I don't feel the prize money is all that relevant in terms of the Irish Derby at this level. I'm not exactly sure, is it in relation to the sponsors, or why it would be so much better than the the guineas and all that. And generally Ambiente Friendly's owners maybe slightly anomalous in this regard, but generally at this level, that the prize money isn't a massive factor unless you're going out to Riyadh or one of those mad kind of races out in the Middle East, which is obscene stuff, really. And the debate about the mile and a half, I'd be a slight traditionalist on this. I don't really, if you're bringing the race back to they've changed the French Derby obviously as well. There's already a Derby there over sort of mile and two trip. If you want to run over a mile and two, you could run in the Tattersalls Gold Cup, which isn't that long before the races. The Eclipse on Saturday, obviously, which is fascinating. Now they're all age races, but the Irish Derby, like, you're kind of you're doing a lot of soul searching in relation to the race. If you were to say, oh, we want to move back and trip because it's fashionable, the Derby's a mile and a half, and the Curragh is a far fairer track than Epsom. The Irish Derby should be well able to attract good fields, and I think it's beholden on the Curragh to start working as hard as they can to get good fields, because it's a race with a lot of tradition, and I know it's gone down the pecking order, but for me, the mile and two thing, I wouldn't be mad at it.
Yeah, same myself, I have to say. Anyway, another thing to look at, just a little thing that caught my eye, it's just unusual in its way, is the race after the Derby was a handicap, and there was a Stewart's inquiry held in it where the winner barged his way out and impeded the second. So at the inquiry, with Ronan Whelan, who rode the second horse, No More Porter. Now, you would expect, if you backed No More Porter, or you owned him or trained him or whatever, you expect the jockey going in, he's going to fight your corner, try and get you the race in the inquiry. But Ronan Whelan said that while the winner did bump his horse and his horse was taken slightly off his racing line, it didn't cost him the race. It's very unusual to hear that go on in an instance like this. What do you make of that, Emma? Now, look, Ronan Whelan, he obviously spoke the truth, but is that what you expect him to do?
I suppose you would. Like, I think we were kind of talking a little bit about this off air, and you're thinking, like, what's the point in calling jockeys in? But I suppose, like, the stewards have to trust that the jockeys are going to tell them the truth in what they thought the outcome would be, or else there would be no point at all in bringing the jockeys in if they're just going to say, oh yeah, I was wrong, I should get the race every time. Like, I actually I was on track. I didn't see the incident very, very closely, but I watched it back there this morning, and I think Ronan was, I don't think he really could have got in saying, yeah, it cost me the race. It was a long way out from home, and I think the senior jockeys anyway, at least they've kind of a obligation to the stewards and to their fellow jockeys, I suppose, not to be trying to take races off them for very, very little. Like, if it was a bit closer to home, I'd say the story would have been a bit different. But yeah, no, I don't really see issue with it. I'd say the majority of senior jockeys will probably do the same in a similar situation.
But no winning jockey has ever said,
I think as well,
inquiry, I need to lose it, have they? Would you agree with that? You there,
yeah,
Jeremy?
I think as well with Ronan, I think what the way he behaved in this inquiry should stand to him in the future if he's in an inquiry, because it should be almost on record that this guy spoke the truth the last day. I've always enjoyed talking to Ronan. He's a great lad, but he went up massively in my estimation here. I'm not mad on jockeys going in line through their teeth. Oh, he should have. He did this. He did that. I mean, like, let's be fair. Like, and people don't really want to win races and inquiries either. And if Ronan felt that it didn't, he'd get the race. Hopefully, there's a bit of karma, and he might get a race down the line when he speaks the truth, because you don't want this perception of deception, to borrow a phrase from Edward O'Grady back in the day, where people don't believe the jockey going in the first race because he or she's just going to waffle about something that never happened. And fair play to Ronan, just call it right and get on with it. Get on to the next race.
Yeah, as I say, there's no winning jockey has ever gone into an inquiry and said, I think I should lose it. They always stand, and no matter what carnage they've caused out there, and they've only won a nose, they'll still tell you, oh, it didn't look as bad as it was, or it looked worse than it was, and all this sort of stuff, and they've all sorts of excuses everywhere. So I don't know. Anyway, Ronan Whelan, he broke the code anyway by saying he didn't think he should get the race. Right, moving on. A couple of other things. First one here is, Johnny, you might start off with you on this. We had the Luke Comer appeal. We got all the verdict on that last week. Unsatisfactory. But what did you make of the whole thing with Luke Comer? He's going to have to serve a 3-year suspension of his license from another couple of weeks. I think the 15th of July is when it starts.
Yeah, and like I suppose you've Tony Martin visibly kind of celebrating the winner in Newcastle as well. There's an interesting article in the race supposed about that, and in terms of the optics of suspensions and all of that, the Luke Comer thing, I'd probably defer to your blog a bit on this. I think you wrote well about it today. Like, Luke Comer, you have to question a trainer getting a license who is basically an absentee landlord type trainer, where I believe Luke Comer when he said, I've no idea how the horses were doped. but at the same time, he is the licensed trainer, so it's his responsibility. And it's a very unsatisfactory case. The yards is unique in the sense that he's out of the country 9 months a year. Whether he should get a license at all is questionable. But I do feel the IHRB needed to, hand down a heavy punishment here. As I say, I don't believe Luke Comer had anything to do with the doping of the horses, but he is the licensed trainer.
Yeah, I'd say he'd less to do with it than anyone. Like, how could he even know? He's like, as they say, he's 3 months of the year in Ireland, but sure, he owns a place up here near the ball at Nace there, Palmerstown, big golf resort and everything in there. I'm sure he spends time when he's over here there. I think he owns half the land around the Curragh is owned by Luke Comer as well, so he's probably there as well. They've other building projects all over Ireland. So the 3 months he's in Ireland, how often is he even dealing with horses? I'd say you could count it on one hand the number of days he's up in that Eagle Lodge. So I'd say he'd no chance of knowing what was going on. He didn't even know what security systems they had in place at the time. But just overall here, the thing that gets me is we've got a situation in Ireland, or generally with horses, is there's 3 ways of testing them for drugs. And when it comes to anabolic steroids, there appears to be only one method that they can catch them with, and that's hair follicle testing. If they do the usual, which is blood and urine, they've no chance. Even this horse that started the ball rolling in this whole case, the Luke Comer horse that was tested, they did a urine and a hair sample test on that horse. The urine came back negative, and the positive test is in the hair, because it's the only way you can detect these anabolic steroids. So shouldn't they be using the hair test at every race meeting? They haven't used it at all. I looked at 2021, the year that this happened, and in that year there were 356 point-to-point races around the country, and not a single one of those runners in any of those races ever had a hair follicle test on them. So how are you ever going to find out if they've got anabolic steroids if you're not doing the test? What do you think of this, Emma?
Yeah, I'm not really sure what the reason they don't do more hair testing is. I'd assume it's probably a cost thing, but I was just thinking about it, like maybe they should be testing, if a horse wins their first win on the track, they should be tested hair sample. They could win 6 times after that, then probably no need to keep testing on it, unless maybe they change stable. You can test them again on their first win or something like that. Because obviously, look, I think it's not sufficient to trace anabolic steroids that kind of came out in the Comer case. They were blood and urine sampled a few times the horses and nothing showed up. So it's kind of hard to know what's actually creeping underneath the surface when there's so little hair testing being done. There could nothing might come of it, but loads might come of it as well. So it's a strange one. And yeah, the point one is interesting, I suppose. Look, I'd assume it comes down to cost. I'm no expert in the testing of hair samples or anything, but you'd imagine it's probably a more expensive, more sophisticated way to test it. But you'd hope that it was being done on a small scale anyway. At least maybe the first time a horse won or something like that. Like I mentioned, it would take a lot of doubt, I suppose, out of people's minds who might be more skeptical to the presence of drugs in racing, I suppose.
Yeah, but when you've someone like a Paul Kimmage comes along, an investigative journalist, and says, "Oh, there's steroids are rife in horse racing and everything else, and everyone's turning a blind eye to it," can't we shut the likes of him up simply within the industry by saying, "Look, for the next 6 months, every runner in Ireland, whether it's in a point-to-point or a horse race, is going to have a hair follicle test done. We're going to stump up the cost. Horse racing in Ireland will pay the cost. They've got millions coming in from the government. Why not just say, look, there's 5 million. We're going to stick to this for the next 6 months or a year. Every single horse gets tested, and then we'll know exactly how many are on steroids and how many aren't." Would that work, Johnny?
It might work too well, though, as well, because I think if you do a hair test, in theory, the hair can take in the lifetime of that horse, and so in the sense of if he were if his hair should be able, this is my understanding, he should be able to detect it at any level, whether if the horse got it from the day he was born, essentially. I don't really know why it's not done more, like the hair testing. I remember Michael Donoghue on about this. He's retired now at Monty, as he would be known in the IHRB. He was on about the hair testing to me years ago, and how it was going to be a bit of a game changer. To be honest, I'm not really sure why it's not done more of. But in terms of my understanding of the testing, one of the problems with as you say, with the testing, is a lot of stuff, it does go undetected, and that's been a major problem in America as well, where they just don't have the means to basically find. There are certain drugs. My understanding is that you just can't detect them in the system, and they're the sort of the holy grail of cheating. But the hair sampling, to me, I'd have to ask Darrell Loughlin, the IHRB, why it's not done more, because it does seem like the best method in terms of finding out if a horse has drugs in his system or not.
Yeah, particularly those anabolic steroids. Anyway, look, we'll move on. Last thing to have a look at is coming up this Saturday. We've got the Curragh eclipse. As I say, it's worth $750,000. There's 11 confirmations today, including 6 Irish in it, and it could be a cracking race, particularly as we may see City of Troy and White Birch. What do you make of that, Emma?
Yeah, I can't wait for that race. I'm hoping White Birch shows up. I think they mentioned that was the plan. It's obviously the plan for City of Troy. It's going to be a real test of the 3-year-old, like stepping up against a horse like White Birch. It's going to really test his credentials, I suppose, as being this superstar. I think what's White Birch rated 100 early 120s, I suppose 122 or something like that. Yeah, he's not going to lie down to City of Troy, and yeah, it could be a race of the year for me anyway. It's going to be a cracker. 2 horses who I really like. Hopefully they can both get there in one piece now, because it would be a race for the year. I'd say it'll be really good.
Yeah, it should be a cracker. I'm looking forward to it too. Now let's look on to what we saw last weekend, a horse to follow, or from last week in general. Johnny, first off, have you something caught your eye?
Yeah, just on that, Vinny, before I give the horse, I'm going to give one for the Curragh Friday. But I have to say, I don't think I've looked forward to a flat race more for a long time than the Eclipse, if the two of them show up. It's the fact that John Murphy, who's a fellow I have a good time for known him for a few years from being a journalist, and always found his company very enjoyable. To have a horse like this and then taking on the 3-year-old, you could have half questioned the Derby form a bit. Maybe you could say it was endorsed on Sunday or not. I mean, it's up for debate really, but the City of Troy is going to, and I think over 1.2 miles with a proper pace in the race, it's going to be just special race with a massive Irish interest. I'm going to give Red Letter, who was a horse who was touched off behind Lake Victoria. I thought Ruby Walsh's, I really enjoyed the race on TV coverage the weekend. I thought Ruby Walsh was just brilliant to watch, and I think, I'm paraphrasing here, but Ruby said after this race he felt like Colin Keane thought he was going to get there but just didn't, and it sort of looked a bit like that, where Red Letter was basically unlucky. Filly by Frankel, she got up to Lake Victoria, but to the tune of a head, but couldn't quite go by her. The 5-2 joint favourites in the race, for in famous colours, one both by Frankel, one out of Quite Reflection, one out of another winner. But Red Letter for me actually could emerge as the best going forward. Loved that performance, albeit in defeat.
Yeah, good stuff. I'm going to give a little one that was on Friday as well. Serialize, a 3-year-old filly from Jessica Harrington's. It was his first handicap. Very unlucky she was. She finished ahead second to Back Down Under. It was a blanket finish in the 7 furlong race, but she got no run really. She was stuck in a pocket for quite a while coming out, and I think first handicap she'd improve from that. That was over 7. She's already won at Navan over a mile, so you'd like to think a mile shouldn't be a problem the next day wherever she goes, but she'd be one for me. Emma, what about yourself?
Yeah, one who I saw in the maiden on Saturday, who probably, look, he was beaten, but probably one for the tracker, could be hard to beat next time. Curragh for Paddy Toomey, ran in the 7 furlong maiden on the Saturday. It was a hot enough looking race, but I had a pair of really well-bred colts in it, and it was actually a relation of Harzand, I think, one of for Dermot Weld and Chris Hayes, but Curragh acclamation goal for Paddy Toomey. I actually remember the stable tour we did a few months ago, and he put him up even back then. God, that was 2 months ago anyway, as maybe one to follow. And yeah, look, he was doing his best work at the finish. You'd imagine he'd be a lot sharper next time. So I'd say he'll take a bit of beating wherever he shows up next.
Yeah, he was a surprising yard that didn't have a winner over the weekend. Paddy Toomey did a few fancied ones around the place, money for 1 or 2 newcomers as well, but it didn't work out. But he'll bounce back, there's no doubt about it. He's well able to train them. One other horse, there was a horse that I mentioned last week. Hold on, I'm just going to turn a page here and get you the name. But I mentioned it last week, I think it was, or the week before, of Adrian Keatley's that I'd seen win a couple of bumpers and a maiden hurdle in the UK, and thought it might be one to follow. I see it went and won yesterday as well on Sunday in New Toxeter again. It's after winning 4 in a row now. It's called Gail Mahler. So keep an eye on that. I think it'll win again. There you be. Anyway, look, thanks for all your contributions. Thanks for everyone for watching, and do gamble responsibly if you are betting. And we shall see you all again next week. And do make sure to subscribe to our channel so you get notifications of when these videos are live. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.